Ryan, 16 years, LinkedIn, Microsoft, awesome.
Thanks for inviting me. This is great.
We both have sophomore daughters. This is a tough market, job market. What advice do you give?
Wow. So first of all, it is a pleasure to be here. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Ryan. I've had the pleasure of running LinkedIn for a while. LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft. For the past few months, I've had the pleasure of also working on a lot of the AI efforts inside of Microsoft as well. So these discussions are great. It was wonderful to listen to the panels before. But yeah, I do have a, change my mic. I have a daughter, 7.
Yeah.
Hello, 7. I have a daughter who is a sophomore in college, as you do as well. And running LinkedIn, the most common question I get from her friends, from anyone in general, is like, what is the future of the labor market going to look like? And for the most part, I tell people the same thing across the board. The same thing I tell my daughter, what I tell the rest of the world, which is usually a good thing, which is that it is a time of remarkable change. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity and hope in these times of change as well. So I typically, kind of rely back to 3 things, which is, first and foremost, my goodness, please get out there and, try and use all of these tools. And even if you hate them, like, embrace it, like, try it, see what you learn, see what you can do differently. But I'm telling you, like, I see it across LinkedIn member base, there's this mindset of like, oh, AI is not a thing, so I'm not going to pay attention to it. Like, this should be an obvious thing. It's obvious inside of this crowd, but like, my goodness, if you are a, career starter right now, like, try all the tools, learn them, get great. Number 2, which is a little bit unique, but like, do not forget the human elements. So, an ability to sit down and have a conversation with someone, look someone in the eye, to be empathetic, to be collaborative, to work inside of a team. I do think that, the human component is a really important component for people to be able to stand out. It could be a competitive advantage to be good at it. So don't forget kind of the human side of things when AI is kind of all the hype. But then most importantly, my goodness, like, this next generation, especially like my daughter, who has these huge dreams of like changing the world for the better. Thank goodness that her and that group do, around issues like climate change or poverty, like these really meaty problems that exist in the world. It's like, now that AI exists, like, you have permission to really dream big. These are the problems that, quite honestly, like 5 years ago, I would have told you were going to be really hard to solve. Now you have these tools to go and think bigger and solve them, to recreate new industries, to think of new ideas, to solve problems once thought couldn't be solved. So I do think there's a pretty optimistic view to all of it. If you can put yourself in that mindset of embracing it, don't forget to be a great human being and like dream big on what can come out of it. So that's what I tell my daughter. What do you tell yours?
I told her it's okay to skip class at Carnegie Mellon so she can go and listen to speeches like this. It's like she's going to learn more outside the classroom in hackathons. That's kind of that's where the action is. And we're going to come back to this topic at the end. There's a little surprise for everybody. But room of CXOs here. What advice do you give them in terms of the workforce, how that's going to change? You talk about the messy middle. What should they be thinking about?
Well, I think if you look back through history, the story often goes like this through a labor market transition. The world's going along, some new technology happens, and then, oh my goodness, productivity soars, and like life is great, and the world is amazing. What people often forget in that story is the messy middle part of that, which is often a lot of uncertainty, people needing to retrain, to learn new jobs, to lose their jobs. That is oftentimes something that is lost in the great stories of history. My hope right now, and I think that we're starting to enter it, quite frankly, and we talk about it from kind of two perspectives. Number one, how do you manage a company through something like this? And honestly, for me, and LinkedIn's a company, 20,000 people, so it's a very large. It's probably a larger company than maybe at least the startups here, obviously. But for me, it all kind of boils down, quite frankly, to between like, culture, values, and then just being super intentional about what you're doing. So culture, what is culture? Everyone has a different definition. For me, culture is defined as the collective personality of an organization. It's who you are, but more importantly, it's who you aspire to be. And in my view, unless you're intentional about it, that culture is going to, take on a life of its own, and it's going to either be one of your greatest assets or your greatest problems in making really good, difficult decisions or changing what your company looks like. So at LinkedIn, we're very intentional about who we are, what we do. I think it's probably our biggest competitive advantage, quite frankly, to navigating any change that exists in the world. So first and foremost, it's like you're either on a common ground of what you're trying to accomplish as a company, with your leadership team, with the employee base, et cetera, or you're kind of swimming blindly, and I would not want to be in the latter. So first and foremost, being intentional what you stand for, and open and honest with what you stand for with the company. I mean, I think people know there's going to be a lot of change, and at least for me, and everyone can run their company differently, but being upfront about what that's going to be and setting expectations makes a lot of these things go a lot easier. Secondly, we've tried a lot of different approaches then to what making AI work inside our company looks like, and we're on the bleeding edge. Like, we're part of Microsoft, got it. Like, we have all the access to everything you could possibly have, but fundamentally, it's not like you can just say, hey everyone, like, go be great at AI. Like, that doesn't work at all. Quite frankly, you have to nail that, like, why are we doing this, or else the whole thing is going to fall apart. So there was a time, I would go back 18 months ago, and I'd see a lot of companies being like, hey, we need to transform our company to be an AI company because we're going to save a ton of money and be able to get rid of a ton of employees. Like, good luck, like, trying to navigate your company through that if that's your top line message. So I've seen a lot of people go down that path and then back up from that, because that's not going to be it. Like, why would you want to work at a company like that? Why would you want to try and innovate who you are as an employee like that? You got to find something that's a little different. For us, it's kind of come down to number one, we are embracing kind of what we call a human plus environment. So it's we very purposely put the word human at the core of everything that we do. The plus is how do we help this essentially what you're doing or help make you better. And then we completely rely on this idea of agency. Like, literally, how do you become a 10x employee? How do you become better at your job? How do you free up more time for what it is you want to be accomplishing in your career? You have that agency to go and do that. It's not a tops-down thing, quite frankly. It's not like, hey, everyone go and use these tools. That's not how this is going to work either. It's very bottoms-up. We have budgets. We have an ability for anyone to go and try a certain tool as long as it's kind of IT approved inside of their team, inside of their function, inside of their org to see if it's going to work. Every 2 weeks, we get in front of the entire company. We have a company all hands every 2 weeks where everyone shares some of the things that they've learned, the tools that they're using. It's all bottoms up. If I was to say, hey, everyone, go and use this tool, they'd be like, screw you, man. But like, when it's a bunch of the actual builders that are like, hey, look at what I did this week. And it's not engineers, it's finance people, it's marketers, it's sales people that are showing all these things. And then it kind of builds this inertia of everyone wanting to be part of this, seeing how it's making things better. They're part of like solving the equation. So, so far, that's a lot of the things that I've seen work really well, at least for us at LinkedIn, and some of the companies that we see, obviously, doing it well are taking very similar kind of bottoms-up approaches, which I think works out very well. So that's inside of the company. There's a bigger responsibility, I feel, quite frankly, across the LinkedIn platform, which is that my hope is, how do we use all the LinkedIn data, all of the things that we know about the global labor market, the economy shifts, where supply demand gaps exist for any skills, et cetera, to help at least compress that messy middle for a billion people who are trying to figure out what their future looks like in an AI world. And so, think about LinkedIn. Hopefully some of you have it as a blue app on your phone, but underneath that app is a super vibrant graph. It's nearly 1.2 billion people, 60 million companies. At any given time, there's roughly 20 million jobs posted by those 60 million companies. In all of those jobs, we understand the skills that are necessary to get those jobs. And we map all that together in what we call the economic graph. And that graph is super vibrant. It updates north of 5 million times per minute. And inside of that graph is a ridiculous amount of valuable data that exists on the global labor market. Which companies are about to go out of business? Who's about to get acquired? More importantly, where do skill gaps exist anywhere in the world? What skills are on the rise? What skills should you not be learning right now? And we have a responsibility to take that data and share it with the world to help them understand, hey, everyone's job in this room, everyone's job in the world is a set of tasks. And if you are currently in a job where that set of tasks have a high likelihood of being automated, you need to find a new job. So we have a responsibility to tell people that and share that data and help them understand, hey, if you learn these 2 skills, there's a job right here that would match what you're able to do that feels more resilient for the future. So a lot of my time is spent trying to figure out how to help 1 billion people navigate through this. And then, but unless our company can do it, none of that really matters.
So how are you using AI to help you personally?
Oh my gosh, I use so much AI. I use AI all day. So one of the most important things we've learned recently, this is now on the Microsoft, like the Copilot side of the house, is it's really cool and awesome to be able to, to kind of go to a chat app and have a conversation, and actually bringing Copilot and AI into the flow of work is where the real magic happens. So I wake up every day, I'm sent this crazy dashboard at LinkedIn at 5:45 every morning that has, no exaggeration, roughly, a little bit north of 100 lines of data, everything that happened the previous day on the platform. New signups, ad clicks, job postings, you name it. And, now I get that email. I'm in the iOS Outlook app. No one has this yet, you'll have it soon hopefully. You push a button, the Copilot button, and you can just basically ask questions over that data in the flow of work. What happened yesterday? What should I pay attention to? What's out of line? Something that used to probably take me like 45 minutes to go line by line and really understand what's happening with the ecosystem. I can now just ask Copilot to do it for me and literally, save a ton of time and leverage that then allows me to go and, fire off 30 really mad emails to anyone whose, metric is in the wrong place. So, just a ton of taking complex tasks and breaking it down is where I use it, predominantly. On the LinkedIn platform, we've seen a ton of great uses for it. We just recently released a brand new job search. So again, anytime there's 20 million jobs at LinkedIn, my assumption is no one in this room is job searching, but if you were job searching, what you would learn is that process is typically you type in a bunch of random keywords. You have to know which filters to sort by to find a job that's great for you. AI is great at reasoning over that entire jobs database in a natural language, just talking to it. I'm interested in finding a job where I can use my finance skills and work on video games, or I want to work at a company that's, helping bring humanity to Mars. The set of jobs that are relevant to you can just pop up. So we've seen a ridiculous increase in people using the job product through that. So I think my point is the more that we can find building AI and kind of some of the natural flows and jobs to be done, instead of creating really unique new ones, is where I find a lot of value. What about you? Where do you use it? You didn't expect me to ask you that question.
No. It's in all dimensions, right? For us, the biggest thing is as we look at the funnel of deals in venture, it's changed so dramatically, right? We do 12 deals a year, right? And we got to process 4,000, 5,000 companies, and it's probably almost doubling every 2 or 3 years. And so we have to use automation to kind of sift through, profile. In fact, Ben from LinkedIn, right? He was talking about how they profile founders and how do you look at, the characteristics of founders. And that's some of the things that we're looking at to automate as best as we can, because you just can't keep up.
So it's actually interesting. So I spent a lot of time looking at data about how AI is changing various industries. I have not spent a lot of time studying how AI is changing the venture industry. Is that kind of the main way that you're using it, or what else is changing?
It's hard. So, and Tim and Ben and all the guys that are here, we can get our heads around technology shifts, platform shifts, all of us are engineers, PhDs, and master's students and all that. I think the hardest part for us, Ryan, is, this is going to sound politically incorrect, but the age of the founders. We are getting founders who are just graduated from college dropouts, and the rate of pace of innovation here is just mind-blowing. And so I'm gonna cheat here, and you have a preview of what's coming, but we have someone in the audience here, Piper. Piper, come on up. So Piper and I met 10 days ago, Piper?
Roughly,
right?
yeah.
Roughly 10 days ago. She was at this company called Mercor, which some of us discussed earlier. And Piper, just tell your story. Because that's, Ryan, this is my single biggest challenge if you think about the venture business. So.
Yeah, I'm the young founder of the hour, I suppose. 23. My first job was at Mercor, which some of you may have heard of. I joined Mercor as number 13 less than a year ago. I was the first woman on the team and was there only 10 months, but it felt like I worked for 5 years. Things moved super, super quickly, and throughout my time at Mercor, I got exposure to almost every major frontier lab out there, and exactly what their research focuses were, exactly what techniques they were using, and what was most valuable for them in this space. And I particularly, because it's such a new market, things just move so quickly. And I think things that emerge that are necessary, you have to act on really quickly, and you have to see them. Otherwise, you kind of miss the opportunity window. So at Mercor, my job was in operations. I was managing these massive projects with thousands of human experts that were helping fine-tune these models in their various domains. And I saw a huge operations problem because we basically didn't have any software to manage these people. And I think this is where there's a huge opportunity for humans to continue collaborating and benefiting how AI is developed, what it's able to achieve, how good it is, how customizable it is for the person in the use case. Is you need really granular human feedback that you can only get from experts or people that understand every nuance of something that can be produced. It's really hard to do those automated rewards sometimes, X was accepted, Y happened. That just doesn't work when you get to way more complex workflows or agents that don't even use a predefined workflow and are able to self-discover and self-learn. And so I basically saw a huge opportunity for, human experts are going to be really, really valuable for as long as AI is being used in evaluations, in training, and in creating new capabilities. But you need that layer where the humans actually interact with it. I think, most people here are software people, and that whatever the UX is that the human interacts with is really important to the quality of work that is done or the buy-in to the product. And I think that's where there's a major gap just because it is so new. And so, that's what I'm kind of leaving to pursue. I'm very new, probably way earlier in my career than most. But obviously saw this opportunity, was really excited about it, and decided to start building.
So I have a couple questions. Ryan, feel free to jump in too. But so just for context, some of you caught this earlier today. Mercor went from 0 to 500 million in 12 months?
I think they were technically founded roughly
right.
3 years ago, but back when I joined, our revenue was probably
0 to
50x.
500 million. We don't have companies that do that. So for you to have seen that kind of growth, maybe talk a little bit about work ethic, work culture, I guess, to some extent, but just your learning in 9 months, right? Just personally, because you were data science major, sustainability, right?
Yeah.
Minor something, right? So to go and get so steep so quickly is incredible. And that's kind of the learning experience that I just share with the audience, because that's the trick here.
Yeah, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, I feel like I learned 5 years worth of things in 10 months. I studied econ, and I was interested in research back when I was an undergrad. Was planning on doing policy or something from a public perspective, and that's when I became really interested in tech and business. I just felt like that was the place to be, and where I really wanted to start learning. I'm not sure, some of you may have heard of Mercor's marketing of the 996. I can attest, when I first joined, we were working 12 to 15 hour days, 7 days a week. The office, people slept there. I don't know if that's, within regulations, not super allowed. But it was a very small group for, a while. We started growing really rapidly, but, the folks that were there, the first 6 months, we were still, less than 30 people spending every waking hour together, essentially, working on these hard problems and just making things happen. Because when you're a new company, you don't necessarily have the software and the institution backing you to execute everything in a very predefined manner. So you're defining like what the workflows are, how things are going to look, and how you make things better over time. And those are the problems everyone was always trying to solve. I think the median age for a long time was roughly 23. We've started hiring more senior folks onto the team, but for a long time that was the case. And it was obviously a very energizing place to be. Learned a lot from the people around me. I think my main takeaways from Mercor in general are the people I met and the things I learned. I was less interested in my equity or like the financial gain I would get out of the company, but like the amount that I learned in that time and like the connections I made with the people there were invaluable, and ultimately like why I think I made the right choice in coming out here.
So Ryan, how do you infuse this kind of culture? Or can you infuse this kind of culture across the room? What advice would you give, I guess?
First off, can you use any tools to help build rapport that were helpful to you? Like maybe a social network, professional social network?
Yeah, I was telling Ryan earlier, we're probably like the biggest users of LinkedIn Recruiter out there. Like me personally, I didn't tell you this story.
Sales pitch.
Yeah, I didn't tell you this story, but back in the day at Mercor, which back in the day is a few months ago, I was working on this like big audio project for a lab who was like really interested in expanding multilingual capabilities. So I think like that's something new that research labs are prioritizing a lot, is like how do you like meet the capabilities you have in English across like any other language. And so this audio project ran for a few months, but there were a few languages that were just incredibly hard to source for. And I think I messaged like every single person on LinkedIn who like had that language tag, seeing if they were interested in joining the project. And so, yeah, I must have messaged like thousands of people via LinkedIn.
That's great. Well, thank you for using it. To answer your question, there's this, I hear this sentiment a lot, and it's kind of the thing we talked about at the very beginning of the conversation, where companies are like removing what I'll call entry-level programs or roles from their company. I think it's an absolute mistake, because Piper is obviously a phenomenal entrepreneur, and quite frankly, probably a unicorn. Like there are, thousands of other, people who are growing up in this AI age. That, the terms that she's using are terms that I'm learning by sitting here next to her. Like, but this is how the world works. So, I think to answer your question is, how do you find that next, instead of like turning a blind eye on like entry-level talent, how do you find the next level of people that think like this and have them come into your company and have them solve ridiculously hard problems instead of going and starting their own company? But, I've been, I ironically dropped out of college, started a company, thought I was like, went through this path, and like, now just listening to folks at Piper, it's like, oh my goodness, like sometimes I feel like I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So you have to infuse this other talent into your company as a top priority if you want to, survive and evolve, kind of through, I think, probably the next generation of this. So.
Thank you, Piper. Thank you, Ryan. Let's open it up. Sorry.
So I think of AI as the biggest economic mobility equalizer or divider. And there's a lot of, headline news, right? Hey, AI, it'll cut jobs. How do you think about, as a platform, you have a big voice. How do you think about channeling the voice in the right directions so that the rest of the world will come along the journey?
So the best asset that we have is, obviously I can't predict the future, but we can leverage LinkedIn's data to help provide an objective view of what's going on. So, right now, the U.S. government is not producing like labor reports because the government is shut down. And we've seen, and quite frankly, like the way that the U.S. government typically produces a labor report is by surveying roughly 10,000 companies, and then they can project what's happening in the economy. I can tell you what's literally happening in the economy in the U.S. Real time. So we do whatever we can to help make that data publicly available to everyone to see and understand, to provide an objective layer of truth about what's actually happening in the labor market. Then we leverage that to try and help individual members make better decisions. Again, you know, we started this a year ago, and it seems super basic now, but like every role is a set of tasks. Every task is a you know, I'm going like 3 to 5 years out. If Piper goes further than that, she's going to tell me that like this isn't going to matter, and she's right. But like 3 to 5 years out, like what's the likelihood that that task is automatable? And then again, like your job is just an automatable task, so let's help you find a new job or opportunity, or help you upskill in a certain way. How do we help companies find that talent? How do we help people understand that new roles are being created in the world? How do we help a company like Mercor, where it was created basically an entirely new category of labor market, thrive through LinkedIn, help LinkedIn members find that access opportunity and make that a new thing on the platform. So, you know, we try whatever we possibly can to provide objective data, help people make informed decisions, and find access to new opportunities. And we're doing that at massive scale across, actually, you know, every country in the world. We're the only Western network that's allowed to operate in China. So it's like we have a global view of kind of what's happening in the labor market. Interesting.
So,
Ryan, when you think of folks like Cyber who are the next generation of workforce, what drives you at LinkedIn to keep at the bleeding edge of innovation so that no one else like a LinkedIn comes up and then takes away folks like Piper on their platform for the next generation of workforce? Or are you doing something, or do you plan on doing something?
I think the most important thing that, you know, LinkedIn, LinkedIn is 21 years old. Right now on LinkedIn, there are 8 new members signing up every second. That is a all-time record in the history of LinkedIn. And one of the reasons that I believe that LinkedIn still exists and has that staying power is because of, number one, the inherent network effects that were built into the thesis of the product from Reid Hoffman, who I think a lot of people are aware of. Like, that was the core thesis, that there are strong network effects. And then number 2 is this constant push for us to try and stay on kind of the bleeding edge of what is valuable to the member base, oftentimes in ways that piss off another part of the member base. So for example, right now, we recently introduced a vertical video scrolling like concept in our feed. Looking at this crowd, my guess is that pisses off most of you. But you know what? A lot of these folks now come to LinkedIn in droves because that's how they want to consume professional information. So, you know, we leave the network effect, but then constantly make sure we're trying to build for what the next generation needs. We change the profile to be more, you know, video forward. We change the profile fields to adapt for new roles that exist in the world. Like, it's kind of making sure that we're one step ahead of it, even though, you know, trying to make everyone in this room happy with the existing LinkedIn, but trying to make it work for the next generation. And that's hard, but I think the fact that we've been around for 21 years and we're growing faster than we ever have is a testament to, at least so far, that's working. And then this constant fear that, like, tomorrow we're going to be disintermediated. So that's part of the culture.
are you going to swipe right or left when I?
Vertical, it's up and down, so you don't even know that.
All right, go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this question is directed at Piper, and it's a little unfair question because I know the answer, but I wanted the room to hear it. So when we're looking at talent as young and as quick as Piper, we also observe that they spike in many directions, not just learning in 11 months at Mercor. So I want you to share the story of the walk-on at Harvard, and what did you learn from that? I'm sure there are many things that added to your instincts, but just maybe what did you take from that, and did that help you make the launch and talk?
Yeah, absolutely. This story will be for all my sports folks out there. It's a bit less tech related. But yeah, when I was at Harvard, I had grown up an athlete, really liked sports. And at Harvard, my sophomore year, I had someone from the rowing team approach me and ask me what sport I played. And I told them, oh no, I didn't get recruited for a sport. I'm just here for academics. And they said, you should join the rowing team. And I was like, what would they possibly want with someone who has never done this sport before? I couldn't imagine how I could possibly add value at something, at a D1 level where, I didn't have any experience there before. But she convinced me to try it out. I wasn't like necessarily used to being the worst at something, but I was willing to dive in and try it and be the worst at the team for a while. But something that I like learned about rowing and that I really love about the sport is that if you just like work really, really hard, it's like mostly a fitness game. So if you just work harder than everyone, it's like inputs to the equation. Like I work out more, I train harder, then I get better than everyone else. So for rowing, like that was like a big thing that I learned is that I could just work really hard and stay consistent and get better. But the other thing that I took out of it is like rowing is such both like a physical and mental sport, like one of the most physically challenging things that I've done. And I never would have pushed myself that way had I not been surrounded by like such a strong team. Rowing teams are notoriously large, so like not physically, but like in numbers. So we had like roughly 50 people on my team, and we would all be in this like massive workout room. It's called the erg, is the machine that we work out on. But we would work out together and do like some of the most brutal workouts that you've ever done. And like never would I have been able to like push myself to that point had I not been surrounded by like a group doing the exact same thing. And so I think there are a lot of like overlaps in my professional life where, like I said at Mercor, we worked absurd hours, and you know sometimes it's like, what am I getting out of this? Like, what is the benefit? And it's almost just like being surrounded by that group of people. Like you all see the vision and you all see like what it takes to get there, and you would never work that hard would you not be surrounded by like the group of excellent people that you are. So saw a lot of parallels between like my time at Mercor and my time on the rowing team. Yeah, I guess that's probably the story you were looking for. I guess to wrap it up, I ended up becoming captain of the Harvard team actually my senior year. So I kind of like saw the fruits of the effort like come into being, which was obviously super rewarding. And again, like something that I take away is I just have to work really hard. Like I can pick new things up, and particularly it's like benefited by being surrounded by a great team. So if anybody's from the South, I ended up getting recruited to the University of Tennessee, which was like the third best team in the country at the time. Like had some experience there, but ultimately I was also like dropped out of my master's program to come out here and join the tech scene. So, you know, always excited about like the new big things. I think like I saw how far I could take like my athleticism, and then, you know, wanted to like start jumping into tech and see how far I could take that, and here we are now.
Awesome. Thank you, and appreciate all of you guys spending, I guess, 8 hours, 10 hours with us. Some of you all came in the afternoon, but this is an amazing group, and I really appreciate you making the trip. And so I think, what's the logistics here, Brendan?
So